All right, so John, you had another topic here that you wanted to share with us.
Right, this was just another story that came across the wire, talking about the insider threat. So a lot of times, especially in even our program, we talk about advanced persistent threats. Like, if Sam was doing some analysis of malware, we talk about that vector where, an outside actor is trying to, breach and get into your company. But the truth of the matter is, probably more often than not, the insider threat is one of your more weaker spots than an actual outside attacker trying to get in. So this article was kind of talking about the three types of insiders that you need to worry about. So the most often it's a negligent insider. So it's somebody who, maybe it's a developer who set up a website on the internet using real customer data as like a test beta thing that they're trying to work through, and they don't really realize that they have bugs and vulnerabilities that it's exposing this customer data, or people who just maybe leave their laptops unattended on an airplane or whatnot, which could lead them to be compromised. Anybody sitting next to them would just plug in a thumb drive real quick and unplug it, and now the machine's infected, potentially. Right. You know what I mean? So you kind of want to keep mindful of your assets. So it's just the negligent behavior that you need to sometimes worry about. Then there's the other type of malicious insider, who's someone who has the intent to actually steal or exfiltrate data willfully. Hopefully you don't have a lot of those cases, but it's still something to be mindful of. And then you've got your compromised insiders, who are people who unintentionally become infected with some kind of malware. Their login IDs and passwords get stolen, and then from there that could allow somebody to get into the network or get access systems they shouldn't be. Long story short, the basic crux of this one is to do some user education, implement some policies. They talk in the article about trying to institute, some kind of information security management policy like ISO 27001, which is not a bad idea, but having some kind of plan is better than not having a plan at all. And I think there's always that fine balance of having a policy that's not too draconian, but is still good enough that's going to protect your assets. Because we know when you go too far to one extreme, then you get your legitimate employees, they're trying to subvert the security system because it's just too complicated. So you need to be able to work through that as well as part of your policy.
Policy versus flexibility, I think, are very important balances depending on the type of industry you're in or the type of mission that you're trying to accomplish may influence whether you need to be very stable, controlled, reluctant to say bureaucratic or policy bound, but certainly be recognizing that maybe the controls are more important than perhaps in other situations where maybe having the newest and greatest thing is the most important thing, but maybe the security controls around that are risk manageable. So I think you're right on topic with that aspect of things. Clearly, two of those are very education oriented. That is making sure that the folks that are working on things are aware of what the policy requirements are, what the level of risk the business is willing to and able to accept. Whereas sort of the middle case, having an insider threat, education is probably not going to work too well, but at least having some leverage that is instilling a sense of loyalty to the organization may help in some situations. Understanding when things are not going as well as they had been perhaps previously. These are all people topics.
Right.
And we've talked a lot about social engineering and the aspects of that. That's certainly an education topic as well.
Right.
And you were talking about policies and stuff like that, but with newer technology and stuff, maybe until the organization becomes familiar with it and knows the ins and outs of the vulnerabilities with it, maybe you need lab environments that have more of a restriction of access to the rest of the environment, so that this way you're not just introducing something that can run wild through your environment.
That's a very good point, Dave. That notion of having a cloud environment where you can do, treat it as a sandbox, do some playing, or we call it play. I mean, that's techie guys, we call it play, but you're trying to develop applications and do things that are forward-looking and moving the business forward. So you're absolutely right. To be able to have an infrastructure that facilitates doing these things can help quite a bit.
And if they need data sets that are representative customer data, make sure that you have some sort of fake but good-looking customer data for real test purposes. You know what I mean? So
Not
good
real
test,
data.
not real
Good
customer
test
data, but test customer data.
anonymization tools, that sort of thing. So
Right.
that really gets into this concept of big data, having the tools around big data so that you can use that data in an effective way without having to reinvent the whole
Yeah.
topic over and over again.